Hey love bugs, welcome back to another Tarot Lover Reviews. Today we are going to talk about the Sacred Sisterhood Tarot for the Fierce Woman. This was created by Ashani Dewberry and illustrated by Connie Curry. So if you have seen this tarot deck around or you did not know this tarot deck even existed, hopefully this review and the deck flip through further on in this video help you to decide on whether or not this tarot deck is right for you. If you wanted to skip straight to the flip through, feel free to take a look at my description. I have broken them down into chapters so that you can quickly find the place that you want to start, whether it's the major arcana or any of the minors. Feel free to click on any of those links and it'll take you straight to that part of the video. But we are going to talk about, for the review, all the things in regards to this tarot deck: the packaging, the guidebook, the cards, cardstock, card size, the imagery on the cards. That's what we're going to talk about right now. So let's get into it. So first things first is the packaging. So this is what the front looks like. This is the sides, the back, and the other side, top and bottom. And then the box opens like a book. So it's kind of like you have to, and it opens like so. And then I do want to give you a look at the sides that are hidden by the cover. Okay. And then the interior. I absolutely love the interior and what they did here. I love the structure that they did here so that you can easily just kind of put your fingers on the top or the bottom to pull the deck out. You don't have a ribbon in this case, so I think that is a nice touch to make it easy for users to pull the tarot deck out of the box. Now, I did purchase this deck a couple of weeks ago. Absolutely love it. The only thing I noticed within the box are these corners. It doesn't seem like the design is, it's just little things, right? So you see it in all four corners. Yeah. I have seen this on another tarot deck that has a similar concept to the interior of their box, but it looks a lot worse. But what I like about the interior of this box is this part right here. It is probably the same thickness as the outside right here, because I can squeeze and it's not bending in at all. Whereas the other tarot deck, which I'll do a review on later, definitely would bend and buckle under the pressure, right? So I appreciate that they really reinforced the interior of this box, because I'm all about making sure that the box is sturdy enough to hold your tarot deck and protect it just in case it were to fall on the floor. So that is the box. So let's go ahead and talk about the guidebook. Now, the guidebook here, this is what the guidebook looks like. A very good size. I like the size of this because you do, and I'll show you in a moment, a better visual. It's a lot easier to read is where I'm getting at. That's what I'm getting at. It's a lot easier to read. You can see all of the cards are in color. The major arcana does have a larger view of each of the cards, whereas the minors, it's a small section of the page, but you still have a colored version of each of the cards in the guidebook, which I greatly appreciate. So as you saw in the beginning of the book here, they do have tarot spreads that you can utilize. So that's always helpful and grateful, because with any new tarot reader, it definitely helps to have a tarot spread for the particular deck that you have and something to utilize instead of trying to go elsewhere to find, something to use for your tarot deck. They go into a lot behind the beginner tarot reader, you know, how to shuffle, how to cleanse, a background with tarot, the tarot spreads, and you have a good amount of tarot spreads in here. You have probably about 6, and then it goes into the major and then the minor arcana. Now, with the explanations of each of the cards, you have descriptions, you have or keywords. So you have keywords at the top for both upright and reverse. You have a yes, no, or maybe description. So I love this idea because I'm always trying to look online to understand what particular card could stand for yes, no, or maybe. This guidebook makes it easy for you because it's right there at the top of each of the cards. So if you have to do or want to do a yes, no question, because those are typically very popular, it's here for you and you don't have to worry about it. The descriptions down here at the bottom are going over the upright and the reverse meanings or description of that particular card. And yeah, it's pretty straightforward. So I love that. I love that about this guidebook. It is thin, it is simple, it is straight to the point, and it gives you a lot of key points to utilize with their, not only their tarot decks, but any of the other tarot decks that you might have. You can definitely utilize this guidebook for those ones as well. So great setup, great formatting of the guidebook. Absolutely love it. Now let's go ahead and talk about the cards themselves. So let's talk about the backing. This is what the backs look like. The pomegranate, and I believe those are marigolds. And as you can see, it is a matte finish. Okay, so these cards, y'all, it is chef's kiss. The fact that they chose this cardstock, this type of cardstock, is perfect. I am a very visual and a very hands-on type of person. You know, I get a feel when touching different tarot decks. I get a feel for how I will be able to work with that tarot deck, whether or not I will find myself utilizing that tarot deck a lot by just the touch. Feeling each of the cards within my hands makes a difference for me. So I'm a very hands-on, very visual learner. And the cardstock is beautiful. Cardstock is perfect. The cards are your typical tarot deck size, 12 centimeters by 7 and some odd centimeters across. The cardstock, I know I keep going to cardstock and then going into something else, but the cardstock itself. So it's hard for me to explain, you know, I don't know the specific cardstock used. And if I were to tell you, would you really know what that is? Unless you are a tarot enthusiast and you know your cardstock. But most of us don't really know the cardstocks. They just know what tarot decks they like, right? So what I do is what I call a C scale, to make it visually easier to get an idea of, you know, the thickness of a card without actually, you know, you touching the card. So what I do is a C scale. So you have really thin paper-like cardstock up here. You have really thick cardstock that you cannot bend down here. And then you have the Goldilocks zone. This tarot card for cardstock, starting at the Goldilocks zone, goes down a tad into the thicker side, and I am for it. I'm all for having a thicker tarot cardstock, but not to the point where it's hard to bend, because I want to be able to shuffle my tarot decks however way I feel comfortable, however way I feel that tarot deck needs to be shuffled. I want to be able to do that. This is perfect. It's bendable and it still keeps its structure. I like the thicker sides too because I know it will withstand the wear and tear. It'll last whereas thinner cardstock, they tend to bend and warp and stay that way quicker, right? They'll get to that point a lot quicker. I'm not saying that the thicker cardstocks won't do that, because definitely if you have a even thicker cardstock and you try to bend it, definitely with the constant bending, you will get that curvature to your cards. And for me, that I can't do that. So I try to keep my cards as well maintained as possible. I like to try to keep my cards as flat as possible. I know that that's not ideal. With wear and tear, it's gonna happen. It's gonna bend, and I understand that. But if I can try to keep, you know, the longevity of my cards as good as possible, I will definitely try to do that. And really, I mean, it all depends on how you shuffle, right? So if you shuffle how you see, you know, most tarot readers shuffle, it's just this way, right? You'll probably get a slight bend to your cards, but that's totally fine. But if you do the bridge shuffle or the poker shuffle, definitely you're going to get some bend to your cards a lot quicker. But yeah, so we've talked about the size of the card, the card stock, the back of the card. Let's talk about the imagery on the cards. So with the imagery that Connie Curry has created, definitely by the name of the deck, it is a feminine deck. So that is the strong presence that you will find within this tarot deck. It is more on the now. So it's more, that's the only way I can explain it. In the now, it is more current. There we go. So it is a more current tarot deck. It is not the tarot decks you saw way back when, where a lot of them are following, you know, the Rider-Waite-Smith imagery, right? Speaking of that and the imagery compared to the Sacred Sisterhood tarot, the imagery, they're not the same. But that doesn't mean you can't read these cards. It just means that Connie has found a different way to express each of these cards in a way that's true to the theme of this tarot deck, but still gives you the sense of what that card is meant to represent. So if you were to look at any card in this tarot deck, let's take the first one here, Six of Pentacles. You know exactly what that card is, right? You intuitively can expand from that card if you wanted to. And I love that. I love the choice of imagery for each of the cards. As far as the naming convention, because we've already talked about that it does not follow the same imagery as the RWS tarot decks. Let's talk about the naming convention. So naming convention is definitely different. So I believe because the illustrator is from Argentina, I believe this is Argentinian, so please correct me if I'm wrong. I was trying to research it and I wasn't finding info on it, but the major arcana, the aces in the minor, and the court cards in the minor, the names are in another language. And I think it's probably Argentinian. But again, don't quote me on that. But you can see here, oops, sorry, let me pull all of these away, how they are not, you know, it's not in English, right? But that is not a pain point, at least to me. If I was a new tarot reader, this may feel a little, it may hinder you a little bit. It may not. I'm going to tell you right now, if this tarot deck, if you resonate with this tarot deck, honey, get it. Okay? Do not listen to me. Do not listen to anyone else that says, because you're a new tarot reader, you can't read this particular tarot deck. No. If you resonate with the imagery, that is all you need to be able to start reading tarot. Because if you connect with your tarot deck, you will be more encouraged, more excited to learn and retain what you learn about tarot. It makes no sense to use a tarot deck like, say, for example, the Rider-Waite-Smith. It is very generic at this point. There are thousands of different tarot decks out there that have different imagery that is more current, that you would probably resonate with than with a tarot deck from a long time ago, right? I'm sorry, I just totally, the year escapes me at the moment, but you get what I'm saying. So my point is, if you love the deck, get the deck, regardless of where you are in your tarot journey. This deck is yours. Okay, so that's what I wanted to talk about as far as the naming convention. Is it's in another language, it's not in English, so that is something you want to keep in mind. But that didn't bother me at all. I have been reading for a few years, and it threw me off for a second, but the imagery, I connect with the imagery. Like, I don't necessarily need to look at the name to know what that card is. So don't let the naming convention throw you off. Just look at the imagery and it will click for you. But other than that, guys, that is it. I don't really have any pain points about this deck. I absolutely love it. It feels fantastic in my hands. Every time I hold it in my hands, I want to shuffle. Without purpose, I just want to shuffle. I love the feel of this deck, and I'm glad that it called to me. It finally felt like I was ready for it, because it was, I will admit, before we go, I will admit that this was not a tarot deck I would have picked up right away. I have seen this tarot deck several times in my spiritual shop, and I never felt the need to pick it up. So I never did. But a couple of weeks ago, I was like, okay, I want this one now. I'm interested. I'm intrigued. What do you have to offer? And I picked it up, and I'm so glad that I did. And I always find that, just because I don't necessarily, get pulled to a particular tarot deck doesn't mean I won't ever. It will probably eventually happen. Just right now, it's not something that I need. So that makes sense. I hope it does. But if this review has helped you in any way, feel free to like this video and take a look at my channel to see if there's any additional tarot decks you'd be interested in looking at a review that I've done. If you do not see a tarot deck that you're interested in and you would like me to take a look and review it, comment below and let me know so I can go ahead and check it out. Other than that, enjoy the rest of your day and enjoy the flip through coming up. And yeah, have a great day. Bye, guys.